for future generations, supporting teenagers in the transition out of foster care. My name is Allie Jo Meier, and I am a student in the Family and Human Development Master's Program at Arizona State University. I'm passionate about supporting families in order to help them become more successful overall, and I'm interested in how child welfare workers can provide better support to teenagers as they transition out of the foster system. I currently work as a child and family advocate with the Head Start preschool program, where I see many young children in foster care, and I also work with parents who were previously in the foster care system. My husband and I also recently started to consider the process of becoming licensed foster parents where we live. I think foster care can be a beautiful way to care for hurting children in the community. And while no system is perfect, I believe the foster care system has great potential to improve support and increase outcomes for the children in care of the state. All children should grow up in a nurturing and caring environment with trusted adults. But we live in a broken world where many children grow up afraid and they do not learn how to build trust with the people around them. Too many children are removed from their biological families and placed into foster care because of abuse and neglect, many of them after years of continuous abuse. What becomes of these foster kids as they transition out of the system? Is it too late for these children to find hope? If a child spends most of their life in foster care, what are the chances of them leaving the system with the ability to succeed in society? The Adoption Assistance and Child Welfare Act was established in the year 1980. But 1984 was the year that revealed that the child welfare system was not setting these children up for success in their transition out of foster care, as it was discovered that half the children in foster care were teenagers and they were not receiving proper case management. This realization led to change. The year 1986 was the first time that U.S. Congress officials brought to light the challenges that teenagers were faced with as they aged out of foster care, and they decided to implement the Title IV Independent Living Initiative. After that, each state created their own programs and strategies to guide youth in foster care toward independent living situations. Because this policy did not prove to be very effective, the John H. Chaffee Independence Program, which is part of the Foster Care Independence Act, was put into place to create more reliable and flexible funding to allow states to create better programs to guide youth and young adults under the age of 21 in the transition from foster care into self-sufficiency. Since this program was put into place, there has been a stronger effort toward seeing better outcomes when exiting foster care. But the reality is that most teens in this process are not making successful transitions. The truth: only 1 out of 20 children over the age of 12 are adopted into a permanent home. Any child in foster care dreams of finding a permanent place to call home. Oftentimes, it seems like adoptive parents look for younger children to bring into their home. Research suggests that while foster children under the age of 12 are likely to achieve permanent placement in a home, teenagers in foster care will rarely become adopted, and they are more likely to have instability in their foster placements as opposed to younger children. And the number of teenagers entering the foster system is only expanding. Child welfare workers in the state of Maine reported that 49% of older children in foster care were more difficult to place, as compared to only 29% of younger children. This same study reported that out of 500 children, only 3% of the teenagers were adopted, as compared to 24% of the younger children. These are devastating statistics for teens in foster care. From this study, researchers found that the majority of children in foster care in the state of Maine are older than 12, and because of the various challenges that come with teens in foster care, the permanency options of going back to their biological home or being adopted into a new home are simply just not working. Should these teens be viewed differently because of their age? Teens are entering foster care for various reasons. Many of them are removed from their homes because their biological parents are neglecting them. Their biological parents are addicted to drugs and alcohol, or their biological parents have been diagnosed with mental illness, meaning that the teenagers themselves are likely to struggle with drug and alcohol abuse or suffer from mental instabilities as well. There's also been an increase of, quote, throwaway children, teenagers who are turned over to custody of the state because their parents are not able to manage their challenging behaviors. Sadly, many teens in foster care are difficult to place because they are less desirable by foster parents and they can have severe behavioral challenges. Adolescents in foster care should have the same desired outcome as younger children, to find a permanent placement in a home while receiving adequate care. When asked about permanency, a social worker from the study in Maine, which I mentioned on the previous slide, stated that his idea of permanency for a teenager would simply be maintaining placement for a weekend. Foster care can be a good option for teenagers who are removed from their biological homes, but not all foster homes provide a supportive and caring environment. While foster care serves as a barrier of protection, it can have harmful effects socially and emotionally due to frequent moving and inability to form stable relationships. Teens in foster care are incredibly vulnerable because of the complex issues that they have been exposed to in their original families, such as living in poverty or unhealthy housing, and violence or abandonment. Research notes that many young homeless adults share a history of previous foster care, along with increased levels of addiction and mental instability. Research also states that adolescents will likely leave their foster home within 3 months of graduating high school and that they have difficulty obtaining new housing. These statistics point out that the support given to teenagers transitioning out of foster care is not strong enough. Every single day, youth are making the transition out of foster care into the unknown adult world. In the year 2000, there were 556,000 children living in foster care in the United States. 30% of these children were teenagers. About 20,000 teenagers annually exit the foster program when they turn 18. In a study done in one state in the northeastern part of the U.S., 660 foster youth were identified to turn 18 in the year 2005. While each state will look very different, this statistic can shed light on the large number of teens living in foster care who turn 18 each year. And as the population increases in our country, this number is most likely increasing as well. Many of these teens will start their adult life without proper guidance, which can lead to a variety of challenges for both the teenager and the surrounding society. Sadly, the outcomes for these teens are poor. Too often, foster teens transition into independent living before they're fully prepared to do so, which can lead to teenage parenting, homelessness, inability to find a job, and criminal activity. Research also identified increased rates of mental and physical health and increased substance abuse. Studies also show that teenagers who have been in foster care multiple times have an increased chance of incarceration. Many of these things can be prevented with good education and support. Many teenagers simply need an adult to believe in their value. These teenagers are part of a future generation who need the ability to function properly in society. So what are we doing currently? There are various ideas and programs in place that are helping foster youth transition more successfully out of the child welfare system. As I stated previously, the year 1999 was very important in the world of foster care. The United States created the Foster Care Independence Act of 1999, which focuses specifically on education and job readiness for foster youth between the ages of 18 and 21, while also providing mental health support. The United Kingdom operates a program called the Children Leaving Care Act of 2000, which sets eligible foster children up with an advisor who assesses their needs in order to create a strategic plan as they move forward into their adult life. There are various types of independent living programs, ILPs, which provide youth with practical skills that guide their journey toward independence and encourage personal development and independent living skills. While an ILP sounds like a great idea, it has various moving parts and expectations that must be managed. Before beginning an ILP, many foster teenagers may not even be aware of the importance of making a healthy transition or what that looks like. Why ILPs may attribute to higher success outcomes for teenagers leaving foster care, they still produce lower outcomes in comparison to young people in the surrounding population. Furthermore, research reports that between 17% and 54% of former foster youth actually return to their biological parents or family members after exiting foster care, even though at one time those living situations were not suitable. This means that many of these teenagers are leaving foster care to return to something familiar but likely unsafe and without an understanding of appropriate living conditions. It is a great thing that teens in foster care are staying in contact with their biological families, but these teens need more and better tools to help them break the cycle of an unhealthy lifestyle. Who can be the best support? There are many groups of people who support teenagers in foster care. Foster parents can change regularly, and community members may be unaware of the needs that are surrounding these teenagers. While foster parents and people in the community are important, child welfare workers potentially have the greatest influence on the teens they work with. In one study, foster teenagers were asked to identify an important adult in their life other than a parent or guardian who they could rely on. 69% of these teens were able to identify an adult, 33% of which were child welfare professionals. One youth even described his relationship with his DSS social worker, saying that he felt understood and accepted by this person. And most importantly, he didn't feel like the social worker was trying to change him, but instead he felt respected for who he was. Sometimes a caseworker is the only reliable adult in a teenager's life, and these folks have the ability to help that teen build a strong foundation as they leave the system. Child welfare workers are likely the most consistent sources of support in the lives of foster teens. One study shared that youth in foster care identified caseworkers as important mentors because of the consistent support they received from them. Foster youth have a deep need to connect with others, and with the help of a child welfare worker, these teens have the ability to build personal and emotional support as they prepare to launch into the adult world. The teens themselves should be the focus of any intervention process, and it is important for child welfare workers to recognize the potential in teens while also respecting their individual capacities to make changes in their own lives. Child welfare workers may feel overwhelmed at the complexity of the issues that foster teens are facing, but even small gestures of support or simple changes like connecting with another supportive adult or successfully completing a small activity can be the turning point in that teenager's life, similar to the butterfly effect. Research suggests that all adolescents in foster care should have specialized case management, where they're included in a 3-part interview process with their foster family and child welfare worker to discuss long-term needs regarding wellness and education. These interviews would begin at age 16 and would help foster youth understand their future ability to communicate with their child welfare worker and their current foster parents. These meetings could also be great times for the child welfare workers to set foster youth up with a mentor in the community based off the teenager's individual interests or life goals. Research examining the social supports of transitioning youth reported that 73% of teens who identified a mentor completed high school or obtained their GED, as compared to 47% who did not have a mentor. While case management like this could be costly and it would depend on the financial support from each state, research suggests obtaining funding from local community resources who could potentially take part in the individual youth's transition. Overall, the benefits of having these teenagers educated and prepared for success in their adult life would certainly outweigh the state cost. For example, if these teenagers are educated about safe sex, then hopefully they will not become pregnant. If they are prepared to obtain jobs and they have adult supports in their life to encourage them to make wise choices, hopefully they will not commit crimes or become incarcerated. These are tangible examples that could reduce the need for state and federal funding. For example, in the state of Arizona, foster youth can be referred to the Arizona Young Adult Program at the age of 16, where specialized adolescent child welfare workers host life planning interviews and facilitate specific skill training groups. This provides specialized case management and can even include volunteers or support from the community to prepare and equip foster youth with more promising support as they approach emancipation. The child welfare workers who are working with the Arizona Young Adult Program are also set up to work with youth who have recently emancipated and are in need of finding assistance with community resources. While specific data and numbers regarding outcomes for this program were not available to me, the website on this slide from the Arizona Department of Child Safety is a helpful guide to how this program operates. And while there are many other programs working to support teenagers as they make their transition out of foster care, this approach is an excellent model for other states and agencies to learn from. While the odds may seem stacked against them, hope is not lost for these teenagers. Research says that teenagers who have one relationship with a trusted, consistent adult will have better success in the transition to becoming an adult themselves. When surveyed, foster teens shared that having a trusted adult in their life helped them to feel accepted, encouraged, and they knew they could rely on the adult for help if they are in need. The previous suggestions are specifically for a child welfare worker, in hopes that they would recognize the need to start making changes, feel better equipped to support successful transitions, and understand the positive impact a child welfare worker can make in the life of a teenager in foster care. The words "I believe in you" can be enough to create positive change in the life of a teenager who is preparing to leave the foster care system. As human beings, we all need to have support built around us, especially in times of transition, and there is no group of people more vulnerable than foster teens becoming adults. They will only become successful with the support of a community. As I've shared throughout my presentation, there are thousands of teenagers in the United States every year who are left to navigate the adult world alone without a word of encouragement. Child welfare workers are the key. They have the skills and the knowledge. They're in the position to help provide the necessary tools and skills to build strong, capable young adults in order to create a better future generation from the teens exiting the foster system. Thank you for listening to my presentation. We all live in different cities and states with different programs available, but I hope that my presentation has given you some new information and perspective about teenagers leaving the foster care system. If you are interested, I would encourage you to find out what is happening in your community and maybe even pursue a role volunteering to help a local teen make the transition into their adult life when they're leaving foster care. Thank you.